So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to this Techstrong learning experience brought to you by JFrog and AWS. My name is Cody, and I'm the host of Techstrong Learning, and we have an exciting program ahead. First, I've got just a couple of housekeeping notes I need to cover. Today's session is being recorded, so if you'd like to rewatch our session or perhaps send it to a friend, the on-demand version will be made available shortly after we conclude our live session today. If you look over on the right side of your screen, you'll see there are a couple of options to engage with us today. First of which is the chat tab. So go ahead and start warming that one up. Let me know from where you are joining us today. If you jump over to the next tab that says Q&A, we want you to send your questions in there. So anything that you have for Bill, go ahead and drop that in there and we'll get those answered toward the end of our program. If you click on the handouts tab, you'll see there is a link that has been provided to you. So go ahead and check that out at your own leisure. And before we close out, we are giving away 4 $25 Amazon gift cards. The title of our discussion today is Cost Efficiency in a Multi-Cloud World. And I'm joined by William Manning, Solutions Engineering Manager at JFrog. So Bill, thank you so much for joining me today. You want to go ahead and get this conversation going?
Sure. This is great. Thank you so much, Cody, for your introduction today. I'm really excited to be here. So, of course, today we're going to be talking about cost efficiency, right? And, the thing is that when we talk about cost efficiency, some of the things that we have to talk about initially is one of the biggest elephants in the room, which happens to be managing your software supply chain, right? This is actually, it's funny it's actually one of the biggest things that companies face today, and understanding it doesn't need to be daunting or overwhelming. If you have proper procedures in place and the proper tool sets, which we'll discuss today on what we offer as a platform here at JFrog, it can actually be very easy for you to go in and address these issues more succinctly. And also the thing is save your company time and money. We like to say here is that you need to be able to do things like remediate less and innovate more, right? That same idea, that concept that the faster that you can actually go ahead and remediate any of the issues you might run into, the better and more efficient it is for you as an organization. We see these headlines all the time, right? These headlines are everywhere. It's becoming more predominant that, we see more and more attacks on software supply chain. And we're going to go into details on why and, the various aspects behind it and how you can actually safeguard yourself. And on top of that, we're also going to talk about the fact that wouldn't you like to have this tool set and this level of security for your organization in a global aspect? Whether you're 2 people in a garage doing your startup, we have tool sets for you, all the way up to mega organizations that are global. We have companies that are some of the largest companies in the world. I mean, JFrog itself, we have almost 8,000 customers, almost 100% of the Fortune 100, top 10 banks, auto manufacturers, everything. We're like, I always say, we're the biggest little company you never heard of. But the thing is that we're finding vulnerabilities all the time. And one of the things you should be aware is we are a CNA. So we are a CV number authority. So we have some, knowledge base behind this to support the claims that we do. And when we look at software supply chain attacks, it's actually one of the biggest crusts of most organizations that they're trying to combat. And if you have the right tool set, like I said before, it's a nice way for you to go in and actually save money. And, like I said, focus on what's important. Get those features out so that your customers are more happy. And we all know about software supply chain attacks. Look, this is nothing new. This has been going on for a long time. And when companies ship stuff and they ship things that, have potential threats and vulnerabilities, the thing is it's not just a detriment to, the software itself, right? It's also companies can lose things like reputation, right? Do your customers really want to come and use your stuff if they know that there's some sort of vulnerability or something amiss with the stuff that they're using? And this could also be a huge potential loss of revenue. And it also, too, is that, the thing is that companies spend more time looking through and trying to figure out, are they vulnerable? Are these things applicable to the things? I mean, let's look at, the big one that caught everybody's attention, right? And everybody knows this, right? Back in 2020, SolarWinds rocked the world, right? It wasn't just the fact that 18,000 customers, actually were affected by this, right? It was the level of customers that were affected by this. I mean, the U.S. government was one of these people that were affected by the SolarWinds software. I mean, it was over $100 billion global remediation to address this. Think about that. That's an insurmountable amount of money that was used for one single thing. And the thing is that actual SolarWinds attack was not even a primary dependency, right? dependencies make up your software. This was a fourth level indirect transitive dependency. I mean, it came along for the ride. When somebody actually was building their software, compiling it, and getting ready, somewhere along the way, this little piece of software, which was, I will say, was pretty elegant, wound up inside the software. And then 14 days later, after the software was started, all the mayhem things happened. And knowing that is one of the things that you need to go ahead and combat. So my favorite quote is that basically with software supply chain is that every time you do a pip install, go get Maven fetch or something like that, you're doing the equivalent of plugging a thumb drive that you found on the sidewalk into your production server. This is 100% true. The thing is I always like to say coders are artisans. They're artists. They do what they do, right? They have their medium is the libraries and the languages that they chose to create their artwork. And how do you have it, though, that you don't want to stifle their innovation? You don't want to stifle their creativity, but you need to ensure that the stuff that they're using, this palette that they're bringing in to create this art that is software, is safe and secure, right? So it's, you want to make sure if you're painting, you don't want to use lead-based paints and then start licking it, right? So same kind of idea. But the thing is that why are software supply chain attacks happening? And why are they just so easy? And why does it seem like there's such a huge ramp? Well, the thing is that the reason why there's so much more awareness of it is that, number one, it's low effort. It really doesn't take a lot to do, right? I mean, you can put a simple code in that just does something malicious like, I don't know, send an exit termination event every time that somebody hits a certain page or whatever. It doesn't take a lot of technical skill either, right? It's true. You can write a very simple malicious program. There's plenty of things that you can go out there. I'm pretty sure you could probably just use ChatGPT now to actually go ahead and say, hey, write me something malicious. The thing is, though, is third-party transitive dependencies are the lifeblood of every single developer, right? I mean, the thing is, look at NPM. I always jokingly call it the house party, right? You put 3 things into your package.json, you do an NPM install. Next thing you know, you have 500 libraries that show up, and you know each one of those libraries. So the thing is these communities that, supply these libraries, that, people build, specific functions so that there's reuse and reusability behind this. The thing is that when you get into this community and you add yourself as a dependency and there's no checks and balances, it's very easy to spread. And the thing is that this actually makes companies very suspicious, right? Abusing that trust relationship between the open source community and the people who are trying to do their jobs using that open source community stuff, FOSS, right? Free and open source software. But the thing is that these, when blending into the community, you can add things like backdoors or malicious code. I mean, look at what, like I said, what SolarWinds did. I mean, that was a great one. Or Log4j, God. I mean, that's the one. What's funny is that, by the way, just so people know, when Log4j happened, actually for a time period before this, they were sending out info and warnings saying, we're investigating this because the CVE, that was the red flag for this. The thing is, it just doesn't happen, right? You have to go in and investigate it. You have to test it. You have to peer review it, right? Before you can go out and just, tell the world that, hey, by the way, Log4j, this thing you've been using forever, one of the most used libraries out there, is terrible and can be detrimental to you and your company. So there's a huge panic attack, if everybody remembers, I'm sure. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have PTSD from this. But the thing is that you don't have to be as frightened anymore, right? There are ways to mitigate these risks. There are ways to allow your developers to do what they do, save money, time, and effort, and do the things that are more valuable, right? Which is get those features and stuff. Because in 2021, there was a 650% increase in supply chain attacks. I always joke around that was from people being stuck at home and being like, I don't know what to do. It's Friday night. I'll write some malicious code. But the thing is in 2022, there was actually an increase on top of that. This is not stopping. This is a freight train that's out of control. And, you can do what you can to get out of the way, maybe switch tracks or whatever to avoid small towns. What I shouldn't make this, I guess, with the Ohio train thing, that's probably a bad idea to talk about, but you get the idea, right? The idea here is this is something that's perpetual. It's going to keep going. There is nothing that's going to stop in the external world, but you can do everything in your power to protect your world from the outside hordes that are coming to attack your castle, right? And the thing is that understanding that and how to approach it is essential. Because the thing is that the average third-party software vulnerabilities cost companies on average $4.5 million in 2022. That's an increase from 2021. And the thing is that when there is a supply chain attack, one of the problems is identifying it, right? I have this issue. I read it in an article. I'm pretty, how do I know we're using it? Or, are we using it? And how far, what's the blast radius of the effectiveness of this? How far does this go? And how much is it going to affect my organization? Well, the thing is it's going to take time. You got to query your teams. You got to go do investigations. These all interact from the company being able to do what it does, which is make products, right? And protect their asset. What their asset happens to be their customers. So when you think about this, being able to approach it in such a methodology that you can have the proper tools in place to ensure that you can protect yourself against this. So the thing is that we need software solutions, and this is one of the things that we offer, which there's the, protect your assets, right? Everything from shift left, right, where the ROI is greatest at the developer level, all the way down to your production level environments. You want to fortify the infrastructure behind that, because you want to be able to accelerate your releases, right? We see, with the DevOps and stuff like that. Here we are doing the AWS sponsored webinar, and DevOps started because of the CTO saying, you build it, you run it. But the idea is smaller releases. I mean, obviously, I've been doing this for a long time. I did waterfall releases when I started my career. And then, the smaller, faster releases have just taken over time. And now we see companies also scaling back into things like platform engineering, where they have more consolidated tool sets. And actually, the JFrog platform, which we'll discuss today, actually has a lot of these core components behind it and can be the base foundation for a solid way to keep your organization safe, secure, compliant, and also to operationally risk averse. And it needs to scale, right? Because most companies these days are global in size, right? And entities, sometimes in the United States, sometimes in Europe, both, the world. The thing is you need a solution that can scale with your organization. And this is some of the things that we provide. And then lastly, you want a way to streamline this. This goes back to the ideas of what platform engineering. DevOps is not dead, no matter what you read, right? DevOps will be still DevOps. Platform engineering is just more of a consolidation, right? Reducing TCO, reducing the number of tool sets and cognitive overload with this. Give the developers a way to spend more time on coding and less time on infrastructure components and pieces like that. One of the courses I give is Our system is based on metadata. There's a lot of metadata in there, and how you can use metadata to help automate most of the jobs that you do so that your developers can focus on what they want to do, which is building products and features and not have to worry about infrastructure and things like that. And the thing is that when we start looking at infrastructure, there's not one single size that fits all, right? With the amount of customers we have, I'm going to be honest with you that I have never seen two customers have even identical or remotely identical, operational characteristics, infrastructure, whatever, because every company is different, right? They have needs, they have opinions, right? You have developers, people come in and, DevSecOps people come in, security, everybody's got their opinion from their past and, what they want to bring in the knowledge bases, whatever. So, you have companies that are still doing on-premise. There are companies migrating to things like, cloud and SaaS. You have hybrid approaches. You have multiple clouds even, some companies are like, I want to spread out the potential threats and risks I have by, using a combination of my own and, AWS and whatever. So the thing is understanding you need tool sets that can actually go ahead and meet the needs of corporations. And when, a lot of the things that we see nowadays with cloud migration and things, you hear it all the time, right? There's the whole idea of, we're modernizing, right? We're reading, I give this talk called The Songs of Ice and Tire Fires, where, the CSOs and CTOs and CIOs, they read the things and in articles and they go, we got to apply this, right? These are industry trends and we should probably be there. We need to modernize. We need to increase our speed and agility. We need to do more dev and testing. We need to, reduce cost and, all these things. But the thing is, we also want, there's regulations, there's, infrastructure refresh, there's, global expansion, they want more resiliency and disaster recovery. You want to be able to scale out your workload so that this way you can have better growth. You want to reduce operational costs because, maintaining a data center is expensive. Cloud can be expensive too, but in terms of balance, cloud can be cheaper, especially if it's done right and done with efficiency. And the thing is, that comes back to CapEx and OpEx. And on top of that, they want to start utilizing other tools like CDN and network optimizations to make things more efficient and more effective in global organizations. So, companies have a lot of challenges with this. Like, how do you identify what, applications and systems? How do you look at the models, right? What works best? Is it infrastructure as a service? Is it, platform as a service? Is it SaaS? Whatever. They look at their deployment models. Is it hybrid, public cloud, private cloud? What vendors and what, should I get a consultant to come in and work with me? How do I maintain, business continuity while I'm going through this transition process? And one of the things that we bring is like resolving dependencies. That's huge. And also going back to the continuity, by using our platform, we have the ability to be either our own SaaS. I don't like to say SaaS so much as it's more of a managed service, because you choose where you want it, what cloud provider and things like that. You can install it on your own infrastructure. You can install it in your own cloud. We're very universal in our nature. It's part of what we do. But the thing is that, a lot of companies also go down the routes of, do they rehost? Do they just move everything? Do they reshape? Let's use some best practice, some best things from AWS in combination with some stuff we built. Do they say, hey, let's just go completely to the cloud? And then also do re-architect. These all cost time, money, and effort. But if you had a platform below this that didn't change depending on where you host it or how you use it, that's a huge benefit, because you already have predictable things, right? So if you use the JFrog platform for this, what you use in your own data center, what you use in our SaaS offering, or what you use in your private cloud are all the same. And we have ways for you to integrate it into all of them and also share the data between them, including when we talk about supply chain in greater detail on what that means. The other part of this is also making sure that the binaries that you have and that you're utilizing between entities, locations, organizations, whatnot, are the same safe and secure components. So the philosophy we have here is we wanted to have an end-to-end solution, right? A complete software development lifecycle tool, SDLC. You'll hear me say this term all the time, right? It's from developer to device. It's from code to cloud. Developer to deployment. I work with the U.S. military a lot. It's from compile to combat, right? They're all the same ideas, but it's the time from the code is created in the inception to the time it's consumed somewhere. It needs to scale, right? As organizations scale. So we have a platform that allows you to scale, that scales with you and meets the demands that you have. It's radically universal, right? We want it to be able to integrate with everything. Like as I stated, we have almost 8,000 customers and no two are the same. So we built a platform that you can kind of bring all the pieces together on what you're doing, either replace or integrate with our solution. It's continuous security. One of the key aspects that we have here is where we're different from, and I'll show you some examples of this in a few minutes, is the fact that we are radically universal. And what I mean by that, continuous security is the fact that most security offerings are points. You give it a library and you get back some data on, is this vulnerable or not? Right? Ours, because of the way we store the binaries, we use a checksum-based approach, which means every time you upload a binary, we actually store it as a checksum, a SHA-256 checksum, and reference it via metadata. Our X-ray security product uses the metadata representation of that binary for the evaluation for CVEs, malicious content, licensing, and whatnot, which means that it's extremely efficient and it's also constant. It's always evaluating. As I mentioned, we are a CNA, so we are producing a lot of data, and I'll show you some of the research data that we provide. We are hybrid. We know that organizations have no single infrastructure, right? Most companies have, what they think is best for them. So we needed to attribute and also give them tools that allows them to both seamlessly integrate and seamlessly transition between these approaches. And as I said, it's an integrated ecosystem. Everything I'm going to show you today is API-able. You can use our JFrog CLI. We have tons of integrations. Like if you're a GitHub user, you can use GitHub Actions. We have integrations there. We have Jenkins. We have Jenkins plugins. We have our own pipelines product. And, even things like Azure DevOps. We have all these pieces and components that we integrate with because we know that every organization has its own pertinent mindset. Now, when we talk about what we offer as a platform, I want you to understand what we offer, right? So let's start right where it says Artifactories, the cornerstone of our technology. It's the universal binary repository manager, as we say. Basically, it's a way for you to both proxy those third-party transitive dependencies that you utilize to build your software. And on top of that, it's also a place to manage your builds and manage your software development lifecycle, dev, QA, staging, production. And if you follow things like 12-factor or multi-tier methodologies, the thing is the atomic unit is the key. So our software platform is designed so that if you produce a piece of software and you publish that into Artifactory, you can promote it through the cycle. So the same thing you produce in development should be the same thing when you get to production. And all along the way, we capture as much data as possible so you have a single source of truth. On top of that, we have our X-ray product. As I mentioned, it's continuous security, right? It's constantly scanning. But the thing is that when we look at this, we actually have the ability to go ahead and proxy those third-party requests, right? So this is the idea of curation. You're actually able to curate those third-party transitive dependencies that make up 85 to 90% of the software you build. Right? Remember the thumb drive and your production server? Those pieces, right? And we offer them in a way that X-Ray can, first of all, pre-evaluate binaries before they get into the developer's hands. So they do an NPM install, it gets a library and all its transitive friends. It gets stored in Artifactory, and then it gets evaluated by X-Ray. And if it meets your security criteria, it's delivered to the developer. But this also means that if it passes that criteria, and say you have 1,000 developers and developer 0 brings down a library and all its transitive friends, all 999 other developers can utilize that same thing. You've actually cut down on the amount of time and cost because what you've done is you've evaluated those binaries and you've delivered them to the developers so they can do their thing. But on top of that, we also offer tools such as IDE plugins, right? So this way your developer is directly in the know when they're doing this. Just to kind of show you, I'm actually going to go ahead and just kind of give you just a quick idea of what that looks like. So if you're a developer and you're looking at any sort of entity that you're doing, you can actually go ahead and see, oh, whoops, I actually turned on the wrong thing. Actually, I'll go change to a different one. You got to love live demos. So let's go here. And I'm actually to go ahead and I'm going to switch projects right now when I'm doing that. So this should actually go ahead. I should have switched over. Hold on. Oh, here we go. Let's go switch to a different project, right? So I just quickly switched over. And what's going to happen is that right now, actually, this is already connected to my platform, but it's actually going to go ahead and evaluate those third-party transitive dependencies that I have actually utilizing, in this case, for a project I'm doing. And we'll come back to this in a minute, but those dependencies will actually show up in a minute just to kind of give you an idea. So let's go back in the meantime, because I want to make sure we leave enough time. On top of that, when we start talking about this other stuff too, the thing is you need to keep in mind, hold on, is the fact that, we also provide another portion of this, right? Which is when you get into the creation process. So remember your developers now, most of them don't build at their desktop. They use more GitOps style where they're using some sort of build CI server that's out there. And we give you the ability to integrate into that CI server also. So those third-party transitive dependencies, the builds you create can be stored in Artifactory. They can be evaluated by X-Ray either behind the scenes or also too, as part of the actual build process where you can stop that. And the thing is on top of having, not only the IDE portion of this, like actually I was going to show before, and I'll go back now again and show it again. But, just to kind of give you an idea, if you look here, here's a breakdown of some transitive dependencies that I'm actually using as part of my code. And we're actually letting developers know directly that there's CVEs and remediation available. The other side of this is that when we are going ahead and utilizing, these other pieces, you can also do things like integrating something like Jira, where you can actually notify as part of the build process and things like that, that you have potential threats and make something actionable, and it links directly back to the actual Artifactory instance being stored. Or you could be using a tool like Slack for communication in your company. We have plugins where we can notify you right away of potential threats and vulnerabilities so you can act on them more efficiently. And on top of that, we'll also talk about software bill of materials in a minute. Everybody talks about this. Back in May 2020, the Biden administration said software supply chain needs to be addressed because they got hit, of course, by SolarWinds. And, you need to be able to, if you want to work with the government, you need to provide a software bill of materials. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But the idea of software bill of materials is it's just the ingredients of your software. And now it's actually been taken on by the medical industry, automotive, aviation. It's actually become more prevalent than just working with the government. Now, of course, you're producing software and you want to have that end-to-end accountability. So we also, if you have your own CI, or you can use our pipelines product, which is our CI, CD, and CI orchestration tool. It's actually very easy to use. It scales extremely easily because it's built in Kubernetes. Just so you know, we are governance board members of the Cloud Native Foundation. You can design your runtime environment. You can use it to coordinate jobs or even distribute your jobs. And even, when you think about that, let's talk about consumption. Right? So you have curation, creation, and consumption. So we even extend this mentality down to the end, right? So we have distribution, which we'll talk about in a minute, which is actually a way for you to distribute your software either to your customers or to data centers. And you can use these things called edge nodes. Edge nodes are lightweight, immutable versions of our Artifactory product. And what it allows you to do is publish those out and keep them as close as possible. So say you are, say you're using AWS, you're using us to handle all your software, and you have, multiple regions around the world, you can go ahead and install our edge nodes in those regions, publish out the containers, maybe infrastructure as code through Terraform, because we support over 32 package types, just so you're aware. And it allows you to go ahead and distribute that infrastructure. And if you say you are a company that's doing something, let's say IoT or devices, we actually have JFrog Connect. And JFrog Connect is our MDM. It's a device manager, remote diagnostics, software updater, alerts, security, all baked down to the end. So you get this end-to-end mentality, developer to device, code to cloud. So when we talk about what we offer as a service, if I were to narrow this down into two phrases that I always say that really exemplify everything that we do as a platform, I say that we provide consistency. Keep the binaries that all your developers are using for those third party that make up 85 to 90% of what you do the same. The builds that you produce have accountability through the software development lifecycle, all the way down to their distribution, and security, end-to-end security from shift left at the developer level all the way down to ship right. And whenever, at the end happens to be what's consuming it, you have that ability to have both consistency and security. Now, saying that, when you start looking at these approaches and you are looking at the way we do the platform, the thing is there's tool sets that we offer to help companies with this, right? So there's hybrid architecture where you might be migrating from, say, your own DC. If you're using our platform, we have really simple ways to enable replication between your own data center and whatever new cloud offering you're doing. If you're transitioning to a cloud, right, that allows you to operate. This is one of those ones, is how do we maintain, our ability to operate while we're transitioning? We help companies do this all the time, right? So because the same set of products they're using in their own DCs are the same things they can deploy into something like AWS, right? So they can keep all the same constructs the same, just transition the architecture. We have the ability for you also to do more multi-cloud architectures. You actually might have a hybrid multi-cloud approach. You might still have your own DC, but you might have more than one cloud provider or more than one cloud instantiation. We provide you with the ability to replicate all these kind of components between them all. And when we start talking about the tools that we offer for this, we have things like Access Federation. It's a way for you to manage the users that you have, right? Users, groups, permissions, even access tokens. You can do it as a star topology and a mesh topology. So this way, actually, if you make any changes maybe in your primary instance, it gets those changes to any of those group and permission models, those RBAC style or ACLs, are actually across the the platform, no matter whether you're in your own data center or a cloud. We have multi-site replication, which allows you to set up either star-based topology, mesh-based topology, event-based, so it's real time, or cron-based, so maybe it's after hours. You can also do pull or and push. So push is like usual is the default one. But what if you have a place with very low latency and low bandwidth? You could do pull, right? So an event-based pull request. So this way it uses the download bandwidth instead. But this allows companies that we work with to operate globally with that same consistency and security. So this way that there's a unknown here, right? We provide reliability, we provide, scalability, all the abilities, the whatever and ability at the end. We have those, right? And that's the idea here is that providing a tool set to corporations so this way they can act more efficiently, like I said, and concentrate on what matters more and spend the money, reduce costs, but spend the money on where it matters, which is developing products and getting revenues and stuff like that, and making sure you don't tarnish your reputation. But the thing is we have also the ability to distribute the software, as I said before, right? It's fast, it's scalable, it's secure, it's super simple to use. And this allows you to go ahead and even distribute out to even multi-cloud providers from your own data center or from, one cloud provider to another. We're agnostic in that respect, right? So you can utilize this wherever you want, or if you transition between things, you get the same level of consistency, the same experience, the same APIs. Just all you have to do is change where you're pointing. So when we say this, that's a lot to throw at you, but I want to show you some examples, right? I showed you the IDE. I showed you, you can have like actionable Jira. I showed, X-ray. So you can have, with X-ray and actually having things like Slack, right? So you get instant notifications on how this happens. But also too, what I want to show you is an example of like a story. Right. And this is a story that I used. And the best part is that I showed this example and I helped the company last year through a transition. And one of the transitions they had is they were like, we're overwhelmed with the sheer volume of security things that are going on. And also, too, we really don't know sometimes what we're deploying because, if you use Docker, Docker's a black box. You could tag it all day long, but like we don't know the contents. Or when we read it, we find out there's a vulnerability. It takes us forever. Like one of the best compliments I ever got is he's like, Bill, thank you for your education here. Our root cause analysis and diagnostics in terms of security vulnerabilities and risks and maliciousness used to take us days and weeks. Remember I told you 26 days is on average for a software supply chain incident. He's like, with the information and the way you showed us, we're able to knock that portion of what we do down to minutes and hours. Right? That to me really is cost savings, because I'll just give you an idea. Think about a single security incident. Right? Say you have a critical library. Now, remember, it's usually not just one, right? There's multiple. And say you have a critical issue that comes into play. How much does that cost? It's substantial, right? You have to get the CIO, CTO, CSO probably involved, and their managers. And you have a group of engineers that have to investigate. This all stuff is going to impact your organization because it's going to cost money for you to do this because it costs time and effort. So calculate that by hours, how many hours it takes. And that's not including things like lost revenue due to the fact you haven't released something, right? So let's go take a look at an example. Now, the example I'm going to show you, and I'm going to talk you through, like I've talked numerous customers through, is the idea of Docker, right? Web services are prevalent, right? Orchestration, Helm charts and Docker images and infrastructure as code, right? Automation is key. Most companies are actually automating more now, right? The idea is that the faster you automate, the better you can actually deploy, the better you can actually maintain, less human problems. But there are some problems that come along with this. So let's go take a look at a very simple example. Now, the simple example I'm going to show you is a very simple Docker build. So just to let you know, number one of the nice features is I showed you Artifactory, X-ray, distribution, pipelines, right? All the core components of our product. Well, even though they're independently scalable in their own right, you can see here's Artifactory, here's X-ray, here's distribution, here's pipelines, right? They're all integrated into the same solution. We've also made it extremely easy to build and deploy. So before I just kind of want to show you let's go take a look at the repositories for a second, because if you're wondering, we have different types, right? So you have local repositories, which are the binaries that matter to you. These are the builds you produce. We have remote repositories, which is the lazy proxy, where you can go ahead and proxy your request through the site, anything like npm install. This is the one where I talked about before. If you have 1,000 developers and developer 0 goes out and gets a library and all its transitive friends, this proxies that request, pulls it in, and stores. Just so you know also, too, one of the things I mentioned about checksum-based storage is the fact is there's 2 byproducts from this, 3 actually. Number one, we actually reduce the the actual size consumption of what you are actually physically storing, because we never duplicate binaries. If you have 1,000 projects and they all share the same common library, we store it once in the actual physical file store, reference it 1,000 times in the database, and you can also add more context to each one of those uses to be more relevant to the usage. But on top of that, we have the replication and all these portions. And then also, too, we have this idea of virtual repositories. Virtual repositories is a way for you to go ahead and organize them so you can have all your local and remote into a single context, and you can emulate your SDLC and go through. I have larger discussions on this, more in depth on the platform. And then we have federated repositories, which is a nice, easy way for you to go in, take a repository, and if you have more than one location, hybrid or cloud or whatever, you can actually, with a single button click, select the other instances of Artifactory, hit synchronize. It'll actually create the databases in those other instances, immediately start also replicating all the binaries and also all the information behind them, and then constantly keep them synchronized. So if you have a global op, that you're working on, you actually can all work together. But the big thing you need to keep in mind is the number of package types that we support natively. We support over 32 package types, things like cargo, npm. We just last year released Swift support because we actually did some work with Apple on Swift 5.7, Terraform templates and all that, right? These are all the things that we support. But let's go back and take a look for a second. Let's go look at these builds, and let me show you an example of what you get. I have a very simple build here that I'm doing. And just so you know, in this case, I'm actually doing this build in Jenkins, right? I'm an organization, and I have bi-directional capability. So I went from Artifactory to my Jenkins server in this case. And if you look, you can also see it links directly back to Artifactory and also to my X-ray results. You can see I mentioned the SDLC. Well, there's an arbitrary value you can set with every release you have called, and it can be any value. In this case, I'm calling it released, okay? And it has a ton of critical issues. But let's go take a look. Now, every Docker registry is pretty typical. It looks like this. You have a bunch of obfuscated images. Well, that's problematic, right? It's a black box effect. If I ask you, and I do a Docker pull in this case of my Docker app, number 145, and I deploy into production, and somebody comes to me and goes, hey, you know what? What version of, in this case, maybe a Node front end and a Java backend, which happens to be in this one, hey, what version of the app did we deploy? How are you going to find that out? That takes time and effort. You got to do a Docker pull, Docker run, you got to shell in, you got to look around. We teach our companies that work with us best practices where I can say to you, hey, you know what? We're doing number 47 and number 95, right? So my Node front end is number 47, my back end is number 95. Well, right there, I just saved you time. Or, what if this version is terrible? Well, let's see. I could do a diff even at the application layer. Now, these aren't different. I have other ones that are different, but it allows me to go and investigate that something changed. That even comes down to, did somebody leave the debug flag on again? Because we capture all the environmental and system variables, right? So we actually know what versions of things are running. We know if somebody left the debug flag on again. The log files are piling up. Performance is terrible. Then we have things like X-ray, right? Now, our X-ray product is very awesome in the way it does things. Now, I'm going to show you 2 different ways to access this, right? You have violations, of course. I did mention that we are a CNA. So what's great is that if you look here, here's a CVE. It says critical. Our research team actually said medium. On top of that, too, we also offer a thing called contextual analysis, which I'm going to touch on very shortly, which means is these components actually contextually a problematic issue? But one of the things I want to show you is, if you look here, here's a summary and a description of a CVE. This is terrible. Look at this. This CVE tells me nothing. This one just says, oh, well, you know what? Actually, there might be a problem, right? There might be a problem with this. And this is a cut and paste. Well, what am I supposed to do? Well, we've actually gone in as a research team. As I mentioned, we are a CNA, and here's our information on it. We did a deeper level research into it because we can, and we produce this information so people can take a look. I can even show you the different levels of remediation right here. I'm saving you time. We did the investigation for you, and we also provide the remediation, and we also provide with you the information on why we spent our time working at this, right? And then, if you take a look, though, you know where we found this? We actually do deep level inspection. Remember I told you we're continuous. We use metadata representation for speed and efficiency. Well, take a look. We found this jar in a jar of a label, the layer of an image of a build. We found this deep inside. And this gives you the ability to quickly go ahead and take actionable responses on it. We do the same thing with security. On top of that, we also provide you with all the license files, right? So your legal teams will stay off your butt on this case, right? You can say, here's all the licenses, OS, runtime, application. We have this idea of operational risk. Now, operational risk, people go, what is operational risk? Well, I'll show you. Well, operational risk is we actually have the ability to say, is this binary end of life? How old is the version? Is there a new version available? And what's the health of the open source project? 75% of the open source projects out there that you utilize for your code are old, abandoned, or contain at least one vulnerability. On top of that, one of my favorite things that we like to show here is that when we are looking at these components is I have the ability to also produce reports. Right? Here's my violation, licensing. I can even do reports on if it's infrastructure as code. Are there secrets? Is CSV, JSON, or PDF? On top of that, I can also go in here and show you, here's our software bill of materials that we offer. Here's SBOM, right? And on top of that, I can also show you as part of this is the fact that, we also can have your JIRA tickets associated if you wanted it. You can diff entire containers. And then on top of this, you can also see, I don't have a lot here, but you can have every phase of your SDLC sussed out. So this way you can look at one image and have everything from even QA testing data. Well, let's take a step back for a minute. Let's go back to the application layer. Say you find out there's an intrusion detection or you realize that there's something operationally wrong with the node front end that you're using. Well, let's go from the application layer. I'm going to click on here. It's going to bring me to the tar.gz that was inside of the application, right? Here it is here and all its contents. I can show you when it was built and how many times it's been utilized. I can actually even show you its dependencies that were used for it. I can show you its permissions. It has its own X-ray data, right? I don't have it right here right now. And I can also go ahead and show you, here's metadata properties, and I can add more metadata to make this more relevant, and it's queryable and actionable. Like, just to give you an idea, just really quick, this Docker image that I'm showing you, I am actually, here it is right here. Here's actually the code I'm using. I'm actually querying Artifactory to get me the latest versions so I don't have to. I'm actually querying the metadata there to say, give me these latest versions so that I can automate my build process. This is a fully automated web service that even deploys into Kubernetes, right? It's all automated using metadata from our platform. I can also follow a binary. I love this. It's a little known feature. Say you don't want anybody to use this version anymore. I can hit follow, and it's going to notify me if somebody tries to utilize it. But here's the coup de grace. This is my favorite part. Watch this. Well, we went from the Docker image to the application layer to the application. Here's the build that produced it, and here's how many times I've actually used it. I can tell you what other images I've used this in. I just gave you blast radius. If this is bad, how long have you been affected by it? And I can follow this one right from here, and this will actually bring me to its own build, right? So I can see all its own information. And the other thing too is just so you know, is that if there's any packages or things like this that you might have over time, like, I don't know, like if I want to do a search, say on Nginx or whatever, do a quick search, this will find me, any of the things that I have and give me the ability to go in and, utilize it and look at it itself, right? I have the ability also too, you probably ask, we also have the ability to tie into things like many of the SSOs and also onboarding. We've made everything so nice and easy that, we actually have it so that you can go ahead, and this is like a generic one, but let's look at something like, say, I don't know, CRAN. You click on set me up instructions and we can actually go ahead and, utilize this. And the best part is that when you are utilizing us as a solution, we've built everything to be classified as native. So in other words, all your standard commands, once you've actually gone ahead, right, here's like generate a token so that I can use it. But if I use all my standard Go commands, I can use all my standard Go commands without having to do much of anything except change my client. And we give you all the instructions. And on top of that, we also offer things like our JFrog CLI. If you're not a big fan of UIs and interfaces, you can actually do a huge chunk of the things that we do through our CLI, like such as scanning items on your desktop, like this jar file, and getting back all the results. You can also go ahead and even audit things that you might be doing as a developer besides using our IDE plugin. We even have things to protect yourself if you're a Docker shop, right? And, you install the Docker runtime on your desktop and whatnot. One of the nice features is that we even have an extension for the actual Docker desktop. So anything you download can be secured also. The thing is that we've built this all around security. We've built this all around the concepts of how do you protect your company? How do you protect your assets? And how do you do things so that you can be more efficient and more effective without having to go in and do a lot of extra work? So once you've actually gone in and done this and even protected yourself all the way down to the distribution components, you'll save your company time, money, and effort. So that's my demo. That's what I have for today. I packed it in as quick as I could because I know we want to have a little bit of a discussion. But Cody, I really appreciate your time here. I hope this has really exemplified the reasons why you should do this, because the more you put in place, the more you automate, the safer your corporation will be, the more money you will save, and the more time you can get faster to the market with knowing that you have the safety and security to back you up.
All right, Bill, well, I'm going to take a cue from this slide that we have on the screen, and I'm going to ask a very easy question. How do we get started?
No, there you go. So if you actually go to jfrog.com/AWS, right? So if I were to actually go and do this, if I do jfrog.com/AWS, that will actually bring you to the site. It should.
And this link is in the handout, so if you'd like to go ahead and click that, keep that tab for later, go ahead and feel free to.
And we have everything that you need to do. And this will allow you, if you click on here, it'll bring you to the marketplace. This is one of the ways to do it. And we also have a free tier if you'd like to try it too. So just go to the same place here and then take a look. We even have one that's it's limited in the amount of resources it has. It's only like 2 gigabytes of storage and I think like 4 gigabytes of transfer. But it's a nice way for you to kind of test drive it too and figure out, hey, this works for us. And you can try out more bigger sizes too, from our Enterprise to our Enterprise Plus, which includes everything.
Awesome. So this first question reads, does Artifactory support Terraform, and are there any limitations?
Yes, we support Terraform. So if you actually, like the important part is like, we'll just go and show it right now as we go. Actually, what's nice is I'll just show you something very interesting. Let's go ahead and I'll take a look in here. I believe I have some in here. Let me see. If I don't, I know a place that I do. Let's see. I don't have them here, but hold on. I'll just show you. I actually have another system that I use for my testing. So ignore me what I'm doing right now because I'm actually going to show you. So I actually was showing you the new UI also. In addition, let me go log in here just to kind of show you what we have. But yes, one of the important parts I wanted to show you is this is one of my testing systems, is not only do we have Terraform support, but we also give you the ability to go in and do infrastructure as code scanning, where you can actually, when you are deploying anything with Terraform, you can go in and see if you're actually following all the guidelines and not potentially opening you up to security threats. And one of the other things I should actually show you too is I didn't get a chance to really show it was this. I just wanted to show you just a quick example because I realize we're a little low on time. But let me show you an example of something really cool because this kind of coincides with Terraform and all those. I have 135 vulnerabilities here, right? Think about how much time that's going to take, right? I showed you the other ways to automate this, but watch this. We have contextual analysis. This is super duper important. we actually will tell you, is this CVE applicable to your usage? How awesome is this? And we actually cut it down because we tell you exactly where it's happening. We actually will tell you. And so out of this 135 examples, I can actually also look at other ones and say, yeah, you know what? This one is not applicable. You are not using this library. It came along for the ride. You're okay. You can ignore this, right? This is another huge way for you to actually go ahead and mitigate costs. Is your infrastructure as code betraying you? And also, too, those images that you have, are you doing things such as, are these CVEs applicable? But also, too, are you exposing any services that might be potential threats? We break it all down for you.
Awesome. So, Bill, we've got one follow-up question.
Sure.
But what can you tell us about open source vulnerability scanning?
That's everything I just showed you. Everything I just showed you was FOSS, right? Free and open source software. It basically is, it's free as in speech, not as in beer, right? That whole idea. But the thing is yes, this is what we do. We manage open source software. The 85 to 90% of the things you use are someone you don't know.
All right. Well, Bill, is there anything that you'd like to add before we close out? I know you've got limited time.
Thank you so much for joining. Like I said, we have plenty of resources and materials on our website. Talking about this, we had a very limited time to talk about it. Actually, right after this, I'm actually doing another talk on continuous software supply chain security. Actually, at the end of this month too, I'll be giving a talk on the importance of package management and also the state of affairs of what's going on in the world in terms of packages. I'm being interviewed, and I can't remember. It's actually on our website. But thank you for your time. We have tons of materials, tons of offerings. We're out there, we're everywhere, and we're always willing to help. So please feel free to contact us. I put my Twitter, it's just William Manning. Thank you for your time, guys. I really appreciate all this.
Awesome. Well, Bill, thank you so much for all of your time and dedication and your love for webinars. So thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So I'd like to remind our audience that this session was recorded. You will be receiving an email with a link to access that recording on demand, or of course, you can find it living on the DevOps website at devops.com/webinars. The 4 winners of our $25 Amazon gift card drawing are George G, Kai N, Jacqueline J, and Irma M. So to our 4 winners, congrats. Keep an eye on your inbox to claim that gift card. But if you don't happen to see that email in about the next 48 hours, check your spam folder in case it gets filtered out. I'd like to thank AWS and JFrog for sponsoring our program. And to everyone who's joined us for the last hour, thank you for being here. We really value your time, and we also value your feedback. So there will be a survey that pops up right after we close out. Let us know what you thought about our program, what you'd like to see on an upcoming program. And we do have a question at the end of the survey. If you would like JFrog to reach out to you for a one-on-one demo, please do indicate there and we'll let them know. Otherwise, we do hope to see everyone at an upcoming Techstrong learning experience. Have a great rest of your day. And Bill, thank you once more.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day now. Cheers, everyone.